Okay, welcome everyone. More of you are joining. I'm going to kick us off because we have a lot to get through. So welcome everyone to this masterclass on outreach and social mobility. It's so delightful to see you all here, and I'm really honoured to host this session today. My name is Julia Eartley from the Social Mobility Commission. We have a lot to share with you and a lot to pack into this 1.5 hour on Zoom. We won't keep you longer, but we'll get straight started. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We're recording this session, only the presentation, so that you can listen back to it in your own time. If you want to go back to any of the content, we'll share it with people who aren't able to join right now. We'd encourage you, for everyone's connectivity, to keep your video off during the presentation, and then we really welcome you to switch it back on when we go into our breakout conversations. We'll be whizzing through some content, but if you have burning questions or want to make a comment, please use the chat box. I have a few colleagues here with me today who will monitor it and help respond as well as we can. We hopefully will have a little bit of time to take a couple of burning questions, but then do take your comments and thoughts into the breakout discussions that will go in sort of in the final third of this session. I think that is everything. Just to let you know what we've got planned, and there's 4 parts to this session. Firstly, I will give you a sort of whistle-stop tour, introduction to social mobility, and some points around outreach from our research. And then we have 2 guest speakers. First, we'll hear from Rachel Saunders from Speakers for Schools, who will offer some insights from the research, from the work they have done connecting employers and schools for outreach. And then we'll hear from Holly Crompton at PwC, offering an employer's perspective on the work they've done around outreach, particularly within a global pandemic and what that looks like virtually. And then we'll have some time for conversations in smaller groups. In my view, this is the most valuable part of this session, so do stick around for it. You can listen back to the recording of this in your own time. You can go through the slides and read them separately, but you can't replicate at home is to meet others who are on this journey and who can share insights with you, challenges, tips and examples from their work. So we really hope that you will come away from this with some inspiration, some encouragement, also to realize that you're not on your own and there's a lot of people doing the same thing in their own organizations. Okay, I just want to offer up a definition of social mobility so we're all on the same page. We define it as the link between a person's occupation or income and the occupation or income of their parents. So it's about ensuring that your background doesn't determine your future. And the Social Mobility Commission is an arm's length body for those of you who don't know us. We have a statutory remit to advocate for social mobility and monitor it across England. We provide advice to ministers in government, but we also work with a lot of other stakeholders, including employers, and run programs like this to help you create inclusive practices. Social mobility is a societal issue, but it is also a business issue. Just a few points around that. It is important in terms of who you attract to your organization. Candidates increasingly value representative workforces, and they make it much easier for people if they see themselves in an institution to apply for work there. You create a better team if you have a range of experiences and backgrounds represented. Customer expectations are changing as well, are really demanding more representative teams in businesses. I'm sure you all know this, that's why you're here, so I don't need to go on about it, but we will share this slide deck. In fact, I think you've received it already at the start of the session. If you need any pointers to kick off this conversation with any colleagues, or if you need to convince any of your senior leaders to come on board with this. Right, so talented people are everywhere, but opportunities are not. So we know that a lot of the work opportunities across the countries are concentrated in areas of privilege, and that people who perhaps would benefit most from them are not located where they are, and aren't able to connect to them. So we have done a lot of research at the Commission to identify what we call social mobility cold spots, so really areas where there are very few opportunities at the moment. And we would just so love to encourage all of the employers that we work with to focus there and to really target your interventions where they are most needed. The second thing I want to point out here is that FE colleges are so often overlooked in outreach programs. What we have found again from our research is that there are twice the number of disadvantaged students in FE colleges than in sixth forms. So really focusing your efforts on those areas and looking at FE colleges as primary partners in your outreach work can make a huge difference. We also have some research that is about to be published, hopefully next month, that looks at the question of why disadvantaged students are so much more likely to choose careers and courses that result in lower earnings. There's complex reasons for that, which we won't go into in this presentation, but just a couple of insights from that research, which we'll link to once it is out to all of you as well. We found that 40% of young people don't receive any careers guidance before they are 16, so having to really make up their own minds and themselves and perhaps choose a career that will not enable upward social mobility for them. We also found that within that there's further inequities related to gender and race. So 27% of women from lower socioeconomic backgrounds took higher earning courses, so that number is really low. It's even lower for people from lower socioeconomic and Black Caribbean backgrounds, where it was only 22%. And what we want to focus on in this presentation is really the role that you as employers can play. Of course, we need everybody and all of the stakeholders in the system to work together. But three things or three actions that you can take that we would love you to remember. The first one is working with secondary schools to provide information, advice and guidance to pupils around their career choices. And what's important to mention here is that this might not necessarily result in people choosing your industry or even your business to go into. But what you're doing with this is really you're providing guidance and better support for the entire national workforce to really choose careers where their potential can flourish. So working with schools is a really, really great way of doing that. Secondly, to counter this gender and race disparity, use and work with particularly female role models in your industry and role models from ethnic minorities, particularly Black Caribbean backgrounds, to talk about their journeys, because it is so important for people who have similar identity to see themselves represented in your organization or in your industry. If they don't know anybody at all in their environment who might have gone into this kind of career, particularly if they are very specialist roles or very technical professions, it makes such a huge difference to have people who look like them to represent and talk about their story. And within that, we also really recommend that you don't just talk about the sort of highlights or at the very high level, but that you are very specific in what that kind of pathway looks like. So talk about what courses and qualifications that particular person took, what their pathway was into that role, and also emphasize the non-academic routes that lead into work, of which there are many, so that really people understand that it's not just through a university degree that they are able to enter different careers. Also, a couple of notes around the kind of different perspectives that's really important to hold here. So as you start to think about your outreach strategy, we really encourage you to start with the applicants. So try to walk in their shoes and think about what motivates them. where they hang out online, particularly if you're doing online recruitment, what channels they use, what skills might they need to be able to apply or even to be able to access an opportunity in the first place. Think about your own organization too, and be very clear about what you want to achieve with your outreach strategy. Why is social mobility important to you? Who is backing you up within your organization? Buy-in from senior leadership is really critical in moving things forward. And also, who else can you partner with? So particularly if you're working in social mobility cold spots, community organizations, FE colleges, schools, charities are brilliant partners to work with, to understand what is happening in that area, what have they done. Don't reinvent the wheel, but really learn from them and be guided by their expertise to work together on addressing this challenge. And so hopefully with all of that, you can create awareness around the opportunities that you offer, improve them with the guidance from partners and from applicants themselves to make them more inclusive and accessible and enable social mobility if all works out. A few more sort of points and suggestions as you start designing your outreach. So having an overarching strategy that includes detailed activities, measures of success, and really specific outcomes tends to be super helpful. So put in the time to do that before you go out and start anything. Within your delivery, really focusing on complementary activities. So looking at what people might need in order to get to applying for a program, applying for a job. So things like work experience and mentoring are so helpful to kind of create that pathway for people and that support. Teachers are your experts. Really work with them, draw on their views on what would benefit their students, and work closely with them. Advertise your opportunities. Be clear about what's required from people who might wish to put themselves forward. Really develop relationships with both your applicants as well as your local partners, and draw on their feedback, learn from them, allow yourself to be changed by what they say, and ensure that all your opportunities are publicly advertised and paid. That's a really, really important factor. And finally, when you evaluate what you're doing, KPIs are helpful. We have developed a scorecard together with the Social Mobility Foundation, which you can use to assess your progress against national best practice, which can be a really helpful benchmark. We also really encourage you to gather feedback from participants, so people who have gone through your programs or who have applied, and really understand what has worked in their experience, what could be better, and really use that wisely to improve what you're doing. I want to say just a couple more things on data, because if you have a beautifully designed program, which is great, it's very difficult to make a difference when you don't know the socioeconomic background of your staff, your applicants, people who get into your jobs and your opportunities. So collecting that, having that sort of baseline of data is really critical. And this is often a stumbling block for employers, because talking about socioeconomic background is a bit of a taboo in our society, and people might feel really uncomfortable and unsure around how do they bring this up, how do they talk to their staff about it, what kind of questions do they ask, what data do they collect. So we've done some work on this, and we've put together a mini kind of data and measurement toolkit that you can use, and we've identified, with help of researchers, literally one key question that you can ask that gives you a pretty good indication of people's socioeconomic backgrounds. And that is the question around the occupation of your main household earner when you're about age 14. So I've got a list here of the categories that people can then choose. And these then fall into the 3 buckets of working class, intermediate, and professional. And once you have that data, you can start to benchmark that against the national distribution. So for example, 42% of the national population are working class. So you can start to see who is overrepresented, who's underrepresented within your workforce, within the people who apply for your opportunities, who gets in, etc. So we really encourage you to use that not just for your outreach, but then also to look at who is progressing within your organization, who might drop off, etc. So that gives you a really good understanding to then target and make changes in your programs according to that. This might sound really straightforward and easy, but people might ask, well, how would people react if I suddenly put this question to them? And so the trust is really, really important. So people understand that and trust that their data is being used well and they feel comfortable to disclose it. So a few tips on this. I think somebody's gone off mute, which gave me a little bit of an echo, but it's gone now. Thank you. So being clear about who can be identified from the data, how it will be stored, who will have access to it, if people might be contacted as a result of what they disclose, which we don't encourage, but just be clear about it with the people you're asking to fill this in. What the anonymity threshold is, that's helpful to say as well. Our rule of thumb is not to look at groups below 10 because people will be able to be identified from that. And sharing examples of how collecting this data has led to changes in your organization. If you're completely new and you're starting from scratch, you might be able to share stories from other employers where it's led to a change, or you could also just share your vision around why it is so important to you to collect this and what you would like to do with it. So socialmobilityworks.org/toolkit/measurement has lots more information on this. I've just given you literally the top highlights. There's additional questions if you want to go deeper with your data, but this is sort of the absolute baseline that we recommend, and it doesn't take much resource, doesn't take much time to collect, and will just put you on so much of a better footing to start with your inclusive practices. Okay, our top tips for must-have interventions when it comes to outreach and social mobility. Work with partners. I've mentioned this before. Don't reinvent the wheel. We've got a directory on our website, the link's in the chat, where you can find organizations locally that can connect you with schools and colleges, etc. Use your data, as I've mentioned, to assess your progress and make changes. Target social mobility cold spots, really important. Activate your social mobility network or create one if you haven't got one yet, and really encourage your staff to get on board with this. It helps you as well if more people are championing this agenda and if you create some momentum around it, so you can get people to volunteer their time for outreach activities, for example. And be patient. This isn't something that changes overnight. In fact, social mobility is intergenerational, so you won't see changes immediately, but it's so important work and it's really rewarding at the end of the day. And you're not alone. We're all here in this together. So, with that said, that was a really quick whistle-stop tour, and as I mentioned, we'll share these slides with you afterwards, so you can go back and read through, and our website really has lots more content on all of this. But it's my pleasure to now hand over to Rachel Saunders from Speakers for Schools, who is going to talk much more around this partnership point that I've hammered in just now. Rachel, over to you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Julia, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak here today. It's brilliant to be a part of this collective endeavour. Can I ask you to go to the next slide? So I'm from Speakers for Schools. You might know us best as an organisation which organises for high-profile speakers to go to speak in schools. Generally, people who are at the top of their game that can really inspire young people in the most deprived communities. So that inspiration programme remains a really important part of what we do. But actually what I'm going to focus on today is a programme that we've been particularly scaling up over the past year during the course of the pandemic, which is our Experience programme. So can you move to the next slide? So a really wide range of businesses are already working with us to offer work experience placements for young people. Obviously, at the moment, those placements are overwhelmingly virtual and online, and I'll discuss some of that as we go through it in terms of how we make that work. But very much hoping and looking forward to having more work experience placements happening in person in future, maybe as the summer and the rest of the year continues. So a really wide range of organisations doing brilliant work, offering opportunities to young people, and you'll see PwC's on there, and you'll obviously hear more from PwC as the session continues. So next slide. So our experience programme is all about linking employers with young people through schools and colleges, and the role of schools and colleges in making that happen is absolutely vital to diversify your talent pipeline and achieve social mobility. So everything that Julia has already said about the fact that talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't always. So making sure that we can both inspire young people and give them the opportunity to get the absolutely vital experience that they need to make the right decisions about their own futures, and to be able to access the opportunities that they deserve and that can really change people's lives. So next slide. So there's just a bit there about our reach as an organisation. That's our annual report from last year. We've been scaling up this year. So we started as a London and South East based charity, but we're very much scaling up across the whole of the UK. And actually it's been really fascinating over the last year, both to see what different parts of the country have in common in terms of the businesses and schools that we're able to work with, but also to be able to be tailored to the needs and hopes and opportunities of different places. So we have colleagues across the whole country who are able to create those partnerships locally, which is so important to make all of this happen. So next slide. So again, a slide from our last annual report. So we target and prioritise young people on free school meals. So not entirely, but it's hugely important to us to make sure that we are creating opportunities for the young people that need them most. And you can see that kind of triangular upwards trajectory is the increase of the programme, and that trajectory is continuing. So in 3 years' time, we aim to be creating work experience opportunities for 500,000 young people every year. Next slide. So this is the kind of the nuts and bolts of how it actually works in practice. So there's a kind of a bit that sits before that, which is really what Julia covered in terms of, as a business, thinking about your strategy, how you're going to reach young people, how you're going to create opportunities for the widest possible range of individuals to have opportunities in your business. But once you've made those decisions and you've made some decisions about where you want to target and what young people you want to engage with, then you can we can work with you to design your work experience program in the first instance, and support you to think through how to make it brilliant. And actually, I saw a question in the chat about how to measure impact, and I won't dwell on that now because it's probably a whole presentation in and of itself, but I'm very happy after this, if it's useful, to speak to anybody about how you can understand the impact of what you're doing, and how you can make sure that you're tracking those young people that will help you reach all the demographic groups that Julia mentioned. But once you've done that pre-work and you've thought about what your objectives are and who you want to reach, then you can put an advert on our portal, and you can target the young people that you want to reach. So you can say, we particularly want to reach young people in Huddersfield because that's where we're based, or you can say, we really have a priority around particularly disadvantaged young people, or we really want young people who are already interested in our industry. So you can kind of tailor it to say, actually open to everyone, come and get a taster, or actually we want to reach the young people who have already maybe had made some decisions about their career and are really interested to get into more depth. So you can target who you want to reach and what type of experience you want to give them, and that all goes in the advert that goes on our portal. The school, so often the careers leader in school, but any teacher who wants to be involved also registers on the portal, and they can then flag opportunities that they think will provide the most value for their young people. So they will know what the young people that they work with are looking for, and they can flag them and make sure that young people from their school see those opportunities. The young person then goes onto the portal. They can see what their teacher has flagged for them, but actually they can have a general search around and see what opportunities are there and available to them. They then fill in an application form. So a lot of it is kind of pre-filled in from what we already know about them and who they are. But they have the opportunity to effectively write a very light personal statement to explain to the business why they want to be a part of the particular work experience opportunity. The school, so back to that careers leader or class teacher or whoever it is, then verifies that that's right and appropriate for that young person, and secures parental permission. And that's the point at which, if there's anything we need to know about the child or any safeguarding concerns, that we have that conversation. The business can then make its final decision as to which of the young people who've applied it wants to accept, and that's very much up to the business. Some businesses will expand and create more sessions to attract the maximum young people. Some might choose to be more selective. That's up to the organisation, and we hope and we advise and support businesses to also select on the basis of disadvantage to enhance social mobility. And then it happens, the actual work experience itself happens, and as I said, can't wait until that's back in reality, back in real life, and young people are actually visiting businesses. But at the moment, it's all facilitated within a safeguarded Google Classrooms environment. So that's the process that we go through, and I hope it's really clear that it's so underpinned by partnership at every level. So both partnership with business and supporting the business to pitch in the way that works best, both for young people and for them, but also very much engaging with the school and integrating into the school's careers programme. Next slide. I should have said actually before, this is 14 to 19. So we have other kind of taster sessions that go down to age 11, but the bulk of what I'm talking about today is the 14 to 19-year-olds. So what have we learned, and particularly over the last year, in this extraordinary time, about how to reach young people? And some of this is about absolutely continually retaining that focus on disadvantage. So both social mobility cold spots, areas where this kind of engagement is really needed. And actually, there are plenty of downsides to having to operate online, but actually being able to say to organisations who might be based anywhere in the country that they can inspire young people from all across the UK to come onto their programs has been really exciting. And also understanding disadvantage at an individual level of the young person as well. The importance of teachers' leadership, alignment with the school's careers programme, partnership with LEPs and local authorities and the Careers Enterprise Company and everyone else who needs to make this work. The importance of being interactive and inspiring. If you spend half a term, as many young people have, staring at a screen, and then you have to carry on screen to do your work experience, we really need to make it interactive and engaging and exciting to be part of. It's really important that young people get individual feedback on the project work that they produce as part of their placement, and that feedback can be developmental for them. And it's really important that young people get multiple opportunities to experience the widest possible range of careers that might match their interests. And on the next slide, we have some of the challenges, and none of this will be surprising. So it's a real concern that so many young people are digitally excluded and either don't have a device or access to data that allows them to participate. And that's something that we absolutely have to keep pushing on to tackle social mobility. And I think that issue won't go away, because even once we're in person, I think we've learned a lot about how actually we can do successful outreach online to young people who might not be able to access specific opportunities as it was always in person. So we have to tackle the digital divide. We have to tackle everyone's exhaustion in terms of sitting on screens and manage that and keep it engaging. And we have to be flexible just to recognise the extraordinary pressure that so many individuals and organisations are facing at this time. So next slide. So these next couple of slides are just some feedback from young people, and I'll let you read it for yourself. But just an interesting insight, we ran 4,500 work experience placements over half term, the week just gone, and we surveyed young people before and after. And one of the questions we asked them is how confident you feel about your own future in terms of the world of work. And at the beginning, 7% of them said they felt confident about their futures, and 7%, so that's, 93% of young people not feeling confident, which is, I think, a real worry for all of us. But actually, once they'd had their placements, and the placements vary, some are 1 day, some 3 days, some 5 days, so you can spend between 1 and 5 days with young people, and at the end of that had tripled, so it's 21%. So actually, just that one engagement, and for some of them it was just a day, for others it was more, but just that one opportunity to hear from a business about both what they're doing, what happens in their industry, but to understand from that business that they are committed to recruiting them and committed to doing everything they can to support them have a brighter future. We're able to triple the number of young people who felt confident about their own future and what was available to them following their time in full-time education. So it really can make a difference to how young people see their lives and how they understand what's open to them. That data is provisional, by the way, because we're still getting responses in, so the research isn't finished, but I just thought that it was worth sharing. So if you go on to the next slide after this one as well. So anybody can do work experience with us. There's no cost to a business or a school or a young person, and it's a really tangible thing that any organisation can do to build your relationships in your communities and to really make an enormous difference to young people and to help meet their ambitions and aspirations. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today, and please do follow up if I can help with anything at all after this.
Thank you, Rachel. Actually, there was just one really quick question in the chat that I want to post to you now from Jade, whether you can run multi-location sessions or do they need to be per location?
So it's up to you. So if you want to run a session with young people from different places in one virtual classroom, then you can do that. If you want to run targeted sessions in particular places, then that's also possible. So entirely up to you. And the question there about whether employers pay the students, not generally, because this isn't an internship in that sense. The young people aren't doing productive work with your business. They're there to gain experience, and they're still in full-time education, so 14 to 19. So I would always, advise that if it's an internship and actually the young person is doing work, then they should be paid for it. But this is about young people getting insight into your business. So when it's in person, it's great if the business can support with things like travel costs, but we wouldn't expect these young people to be paid in general.
Thanks, Rachel. There was one other question from Elsa about the Portal of Opportunities in Unifrog. Do you know anything about this?
Unifrog, I am not sure. Is Portal of Opportunities Unifrog? Not sure. Don't think so. I can get back to you. It's our own portal. Not sure what Unifrog is. And there's it's the one that schools use. It connects to, so we integrate with school databases. So hopefully that helps with that question. Can you search with access needs for children that have a disability? Yes, so we're having a particular focus around this in June in terms of asking employers to do more to make their placements accessible to young people with additional needs. But yes, it is at this time. The way we would do that now would be if a child had additional needs which would have an impact on their ability to engage with the placement, then we would know that at the point of application, and we would then work with the employer to make that possible as far as we possibly could. So at the moment, it's a kind of a bespoke service in the sense that we would work with the teacher in the first instance to understand what was needed to make the placement accessible. But we're doing much more to encourage employers to advertise according to access needs as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm afraid we're going to have to move on to Holly now, but perhaps, Rachel, you can answer some of the remaining questions in the chat during the next presentation. Thank you so much for your input. So, Holly, over to you.
Thanks, Julia. So thanks so much for having us today, everyone. We're really pleased to be sharing some of our experiences around outreach with you. I'm Holly Crampton and I lead on social mobility at PwC. Our social mobility team is part of our wider inclusion, community and wellbeing team. And I'm also joined today by my colleague Susie Hans-Barclay, who's very close to our schools engagement and leads on virtual skills programme with Refugee Council UK. For anyone on the session who hasn't come across PwC before, we're a professional services firm and we provide services to clients including audit, tax, advisory, consulting and technology. We were ranked #1 in the Social Mobility Employer Index in 2019 and 2020. We're still very much on a journey with our work on social mobility, and we have lots more to do and lots more we'd like to achieve, but we are a fair way on with that journey, and we have been working with schools and disadvantaged communities for a long time. We're very lucky to have a dedicated team to coordinate and deliver our outreach, but you don't have to be a large organisation like PwC to make a difference. Every organisation of every size can make a difference in their individual interactions. So if we could go to the next slide, please, Julia. So today we're going to talk about giving you an overview of our community engagement programme and what this looked like before COVID, the impact of COVID on our programme and what we've been doing since March last year, what we've learned with our outreach programmes and where we see the future of outreach. And I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Susie to talk you through our different programmes.
Hi everyone, lovely to see you here this afternoon. So as Holly mentioned, my name's Susie, Susie Hans-Barkley. I work with Holly in the social mobility team here at PwC. In my role, I design and deliver programmes focused on the skills development of students from disadvantaged backgrounds. And I have a particular focus and responsibility for the regions of Northern Ireland, the Midlands, Wales and the southwest of England, which is where I'm based. I live in Bristol. In addition, at PwC, I've launched a UK-wide employability skills support programme for refugees. So our social mobility community programme then, so our vision for this programme is to use our skills and resources to enable people from disadvantaged backgrounds across the UK to make the most of their potential, whether that's at PwC or elsewhere. So starting on the left-hand side then with our schools programme, so this offers secondary school students an opportunity to develop their confidence and key employability skills. We target schools across the UK with a higher than average proportion of students eligible for free school meals. And in case you're wondering, we use freely available free school meal data published by the Department of Education and equivalent in all of the UK regions. We also consider areas such as social mobility cold spots, which have already been touched upon earlier in this session. These are areas where it's particularly challenging to become socially mobile. So in other words, where it's harder to escape deprivation and move up the ladder in terms of profession and socioeconomic status. And which has already been mentioned as well, we work with further education or FE colleges in these social mobility cold spots. So the key objectives of our schools programme, which I will talk more about in a moment, are to equip students with the skills to help them fulfil their potential, achieving positive employment outcomes in their career of choice, whether that's at PwC or elsewhere. We want to remove barriers to access, so linking our outreach programme to our recruitment opportunities and building that pipeline. We want to reach the most disadvantaged areas and groups according to national data, including those cold spots which have been mentioned. We want to provide volunteering opportunities for our staff, and we have 22,000 staff across the UK. And we want to overall demonstrate PwC's commitment to social mobility. Moving on now to working with refugees. So we are working with the Refugee Council UK and other organisations to deliver fully virtual training sessions to their clients. And last year, we launched an employability skills support programme, which was designed to introduce, prepare and equip refugees with the knowledge and skills they need to work in the UK. And following on from our collaboration with the Refugee Council UK, 2 refugees are shortly about to start a paid 24-week training and work programme at the firm, which is really exciting. They're actually starting their training in March. Julia, if you could move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So our schools outreach programme is our biggest programme. So this is the one I'm going to focus on today. And on this slide, you can see how we structured our programme pre-COVID. So we had 4 key strands then to our outreach programme. So there was technology and digital, financial literacy, well-being and employability skills, soft skills, sorry. A number of different activities within this with the aim of delivering breadth and depth. And it was open to secondary schools, which meet our social mobility criteria, primarily years 9 to 13 and equivalent, but also where our sessions could be tailored for the younger years, years 7 and 8. So now looking at the pyramid, you can see that there's a range of activities there, and these do deliver breadth and depth, as I mentioned. So what I mean by that is the programmes at the bottom of the pyramid reach thousands of students, but they're quite light touch, whereas programs towards the top, like mentoring, for example, are more in depth, but they reach a much smaller number of students. But we think it's important that there's a balance of both types of programs. Furthermore, we had a balance of in-office experiences and visits to schools with the hopes that students in schools engage with multiple activities and they have that sustained engagement with us and really therefore enabling a real positive impact on the young people involved. Much of our schools engagement, and this is still the case now, sort of during COVID, post-COVID, lots of it is delivered by volunteers within our business. So we have a social mobility network across the firm of 2,000 members who are all incredibly passionate about social mobility and supporting the skills development of disadvantaged school students. And it's from this pool of people that we draw from to design and deliver our activities. And finally here, as was mentioned on the previous slide, so what makes a school social mobility eligible to take part in our programme? So it's things like looking at free school meals, data, it's looking at their location, for example, are they in a social mobility cold spot or opportunity area, and SE colleges in cold spots. If you could please move on to the next slide, Julia. Thank you. So how are we currently working with schools then? So we have two teams that work very closely in this area. So we have the talent engagement team. They run programs aimed at the older year groups, more focused on recruitment process skills, key employability skills, whereas the social mobility team runs programs focused on those softer skills and linked to recruitment. So but it's here where student success is in whichever career they choose. It does not need to be at PwC. From a recruitment perspective, we look to engage with a wide and diverse audience of students and teachers and careers leaders with a view to recruit students onto our school and college leaver programs and Flying Start programs, which is where you combine studying and work placements. Students are able to sign up to these programs individually, which are focused on careers, key skills, recruitment process hints and tips. And as a social mobility team, we focus on helping students we work with to develop skills for whatever career they choose, as I've mentioned. This is still very much linked to recruitment, and we do raise awareness of PwC and our opportunities with these students. So briefly then, on the slide, you can see we've got the talent engagement programs. So that includes things like our virtual classroom, a back to schools tour where we focus on accounting and technology, and things like the Employability Hub, which is a website where students can go and do e-learns and various access to resources, which help them in the recruitment process as well. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the Social Mobility Schools program. So in light of COVID, as you might imagine, we have designed a fully virtual program for this academic year to support young people all the way through secondary school, so year 7 to 13 and equivalent. In there as well, we've got the RISE, which is a collaborative outreach program working with the ICAEW and the Big Six professional services firms. We've also run events and activities with partner organisations, for example, Sutton Trust and Speakers for Schools. And we also have mentoring, which I've mentioned before, where we're working with organisations such as the Prince's Trust, National Literacy Trust and a HEAD partnership. And just one thing I want to mention on there, which I haven't, the Employability Skills Toolkit. So that's a really great resource which our team has developed, and that they are free lesson plans, free resources, widely available, which cover, a wide range of topics like well-being and resilience, financial literacy, tech and digital, which students have really appreciated. Another programme which is not mentioned on this slide is our New World, New Skills Social Mobility Work Experience programme happening this August. So this is a paid week-long programme where places are ring-fenced for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, and we're recruiting these students through partner organisations, including Sutton Trust, Speakers for Schools, and the Social Mobility Foundation. So I'm just going to finish off by sort of sharing what works well. So we know students love hearing from our staff about their career journeys, their experiences of working at the firm, and any advice they have. We make sure that students have the opportunity to ask questions to our staff during those events. We report on all of our outreach progress in our non-financial scorecard, which forms part of our annual report. To give you an insight into those numbers, between July 2019 and June 2020, we supported over 18,000 young people with skills development and provided 228 workplace experiences to young people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. In regards to these figures, obviously this period sort of spanning COVID, lockdown and school closures, we did see an impact here. So the year before we supported 21,000 students, for example, compared to the 18,000 when COVID hit. But over the last year, we've worked with many external organisations that I've mentioned to deliver virtual alternatives, as well as our own Virtual Insight Week and Virtual Classroom. Our Virtual Insight Week was opened up to all 5,000 students that applied when it was going to be in person, and we had nearly 2,000 students attend those sessions throughout the week. And the last thing I'd like to say is I'd really like to emphasise the importance of collecting feedback and improving your programmes accordingly. So feedback from students, teachers, careers leads is really key to ensure that your programmes are as interactive, engaging and informative as possible. And on that, I will hand back to Holly.
Fab. Thanks, Susie. So now we're going to talk through some of our key challenges and learnings, and some of these echo what Rachel covered earlier. So the first one is when we talk to teachers and careers leaders, they're often really keen to get involved with our school's engagement activities. But what we often find difficult is getting to the right contact within the school and then them having the time to engage with us on what's available. This links into the point around working with partner organisations, which I know Rachel emphasised earlier. There's many organisations out there who already have fantastic links and relationships with schools, so it's great to be able to leverage these to reach more schools and students and those that are most in need of our support. We work with a number of partner organisations such as Speakers for Schools, as Rachel mentioned, Social Mobility Foundation, Sutton Trust, Uptree, Teach First, Social Mobility Business Partnership and many others. We also work with local enterprise coordinators and local councils to engage with schools. You can find out on the Careers and Enterprise Company website who your local enterprise coordinator is and get in touch with them. We're a cornerstone employer through the Careers and Enterprise Company in the Bradford opportunity area. And so we've done enhanced schools engagement work there over the past few years. And we found the enterprise coordinator contacts absolutely fantastic in providing us with links with schools. The second one around safeguarding. Lots of employers at the start of COVID were very unsure around safeguarding and how that all worked online. We were too, but we consulted with our partner organisations and developed our own safeguarding guidance document, which is shared with all staff before any engagement with students. And we think the key here is that employers aren't put off delivering virtual schools activity due to safeguarding, but that they actually consult on safeguarding and put things in place. So the Social Mobility Foundation have some really useful guidance in their adapting outreach activity and delivering online best practice guide. So if you're not sure about safeguarding, that's where I would go to have a look. The other issue, which I know Rachel's already mentioned, around the digital divide. So we know there are still many students who don't have access to devices, reliable internet, and also quiet space to work at home. So we know lots of employers are donating laptops, internet data, but we think we should all be considering how we can make our programmes accessible to as many students as possible. Some of the actions that we've taken have been to mix pre-recorded and live sessions to mitigate access issues so that students can watch sessions back at a later time when they're able to access internet or a device. And also moving forward, hopefully from the 8th of March, students will be back in school. And schools won't be closed again. So the intention for our programmes is for teachers to sign up a class or a year group and beam us into the classroom so that students aren't needing to use their own device or internet. Another thing we found difficult with virtual engagement is it's often more difficult to gather data on the socioeconomic background of attendees for online engagement because, you know, when you're doing an hour-long online session, you don't always want the students to have to input lots and lots of data beforehand. So we don't really know, other than the school that they go to, whether students from disadvantaged backgrounds are accessing our online engagement less than those from advantaged backgrounds. We do have a very small amount of data from our Virtual Insight Week programme, which suggests that the proportion of students from disadvantaged backgrounds who access the programme is slightly less than the proportion who applied. Interactivity, as I'm sure we all know, having attended lots of virtual events, is massively important. So we found it's much harder, just as it is with many of the online sessions all of us have been attending, to keep students engaged online. So we've tried to make our sessions as interactive as possible through use of tools such as Slido, breakout groups, and we just check in with the students throughout the event and give them opportunities to contribute. There's obviously such a wide choice of platforms for events, so you need to think about the one which best covers off what you need and gives you that opportunity for interactivity. Teacher involvement when delivering sessions virtually can also help with keeping sessions interactive. We also know that students still want to hear from our staff about their own career journeys and experiences, just as Julia said earlier. So with virtual engagement, it's still really key to get volunteers from the business involved and make sure that students have the opportunity to hear from them. And finally, we've mapped all of our schools' resources and sessions to the 8 Gatsby benchmarks of good career guidance. And we've found that that's really helped with how attractive our sessions are to teachers and careers leaders. They can basically see at a glance how our sessions and resources are going to help them meet the benchmarks. If we could move to the next slide, please, Julia. So what does the future of outreach and schools engagement look like at PwC? We absolutely want to get back to in-person engagement with school students when we're able to do so. Virtual activity has lots of benefits, like being able to reach a wider audience and being able to reach students and schools far from offices who wouldn't have been able to access in-person activity previously. But going forward, we're very much planning a blended approach and to offer a mix of virtual and in-person activities. Some employers may have found that virtual activity is easier to organise, cheaper, gives them access to more students, but we know that access to office environments and networking with staff is really important, particularly for disadvantaged students. And teachers and careers leaders that we've been speaking to have fed back that they would really like employers to get back to in-person engagement when they can. In the meantime, we're thinking about how we can bring more of an office experience to our virtual activity through things like virtual office tours. We think it's really important for us to be able to offer as close an experience to what students would get in an office as we possibly can. We'll continue to link all of our resources and sessions to the Gatsby benchmarks, and going forward, we're going to be working with Skills Builder to embed essential skills into all of our programmes. We're also going to be continuing to focus on well-being as part of our programmes because we think it's increasingly important, especially when students return to school and we'll have all the additional pressure of catching up, which obviously we've been hearing a lot about in the press this week. We'll continue to offer work experience placements, and as Susie mentioned, we're hoping our work experience programme this summer can be blended and that part of it can take place in the office. We think that work experience is particularly important. Some stats that we read recently around Teach First research showing that 63% of teachers believe that opportunities for young people to meet a range of employers is more vital now than it ever has been. And recent Prince's Trust data shows that 46% of young people have said that finding a job now feels impossible, which obviously is really not where we want to be. So it's absolutely key that we continue to provide opportunities for young people to access work experience. We'd also like to try and make sure going forward that more students and schools are having more sustained or repeated engagements with us so that we're offering different programmes and different opportunities to engage with us throughout a student's secondary school career to have that really big impact. And that's it. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you both so much, Holly and Susie. And there's been a number of comments in the chat as you were speaking, requesting some of your resources and some insight and tips, particularly around engaging with local enterprise contacts. I'm going to suggest that because we'll put together an after pack with lots more resources, we will include that so you'll all get that afterwards by email. And we will now do what you have said, Holly, which is that interactive design of online engagement is really important, and that's what we would love to do now with you, to break into some smaller group conversations so you can process some of this food for thought that we've offered you, and hopefully kind of problem solve together a little bit and think about how you can incorporate some of these insights into your practice. And for that, we have a number of sort of faculty on our team, Social Mobility Foundation, who has been name checked a few times, are represented here, alongside with others who have a lot of experience in this area and who can help us sort of guide the conversation a little bit. We have about half an hour for this, so please stick around and you will be taken automatically into your breakout. You see some of these faces. You will also see, if you're lucky, you'll be in a room with Holly, Susie, or Rachel. You can ask them more questions. Otherwise, we'll see you back in half an hour and wrap up together. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Apologies, as always, for those of you who will inevitably have been cut off mid-sentence by being pulled back into the main space. I hope you had some really good conversations. We did in our group, and I would love to just we've got a few minutes left before we close, and I'd love to invite some of my facilitators from the other groups to just give us a snippet so we can at least get a little bit of a sense of what conversations were had in the other groups. So could I invite Millie to give us a highlight from your group?
Sorry, there we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Lovely. So yeah, really interesting discussion. Thank you very much to everyone who is in group one. Quite a wide-ranging discussion. We were talking about the challenges of collecting data and measuring impact. We had a really good discussion about how do you make a virtual experience or a virtual program as engaging as an offline program. And just to give you a flavour, there was some really great examples of organisations using lots of different formats and channels to really make their programmes connect and for young people to engage in the ways that is most ways that are most comfortable for them. We also talked quite a lot about the aspect of authenticity and the importance of having people delivering outreach programs who young people can relate to. And there are challenges with that if you haven't got so much representation in certain industries of people from different social mobility, social backgrounds, sorry. And some really great ideas and examples of the kinds of outreach programs that organisations are running. So some really innovative work that's happening out there.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait to hear more about it when we get everyone's notes back. Thank you so much, Millie. And Dave, could you also give us a highlight from your group? That would be fab.
Yeah, so one of the topics we discussed was how to reach the right people within schools. And our snippet was around that finding a contact who has a warm relationship. So reaching out to staff, seeing if they're governors of any schools in the area, if you've got local offices there, perhaps. Also utilising perhaps professional bodies or other membership organisations you're part of who might have local networks. Clearly the LEPs, the Careers and Enterprise Company, might be able to help facilitate an introduction to certain schools as well. But finding that right person, it's always better to have a warm relationship to go into schools with.
Thank you so much. Some really good points raised. We don't have time to hear from all the other groups, but what we are going to do is, if I can get to that slide, we will pull together an after pack, which will include the slides from today, the slides from Speakers for Schools and PwC as well, so you have them at hand, as well as a sort of checklist that we will build based on all the points that you've made in all the different breakout discussions. So hopefully you'll get something back that reflects the conversation we've had today and that you can use to move on in your practice. We also run, I've mentioned this in my group, we run masterclasses on different aspects of social mobility in organizations. So we have one specifically just around hiring and recruitment. So obviously there's lots of links with outreach and hiring, but some of those questions that are more specifically, for example, around contextual recruitment, please join us on those. You can find updates on events on our website, socialmobilityworks.org, and our upcoming next event is on the 25th of March, and that specifically looks at data, how you measure it, what you do with it, all the kind of challenges and successes around that. So please sign up for that. It would be lovely to see you back. And yeah, that just leaves me to thank you so much for joining today, for all your input and your commitment and your energy, your ideas. It was such a pleasure to see you, and we hope to encounter you again in future, either online, on our social media pages, on these events, or you can also email us, and please stay in touch. All the best. Thank you.